take a deep breath. Close your eyes for just a moment. And I want you to imagine, what if today, right here, you could begin to change the way you respond to your greatest fears? What if the very panic you feel is not a sign of weakness, but an invitation to evolve, to step beyond the familiar, beyond survival, into creation? Because here's the truth. Every time we experience a panic attack, our body is simply reliving the past, triggering the same emotional signature, the same chemical response, as if we're trapped in a loop. But you are greater than your body. You are greater than your emotions. Today, we're going to learn how to break free from that cycle. Today, we're going to teach the body what it feels like to be safe again, through awareness, through breath, through elevated intention. Because when you change your energy, you change your life. And it all begins right now.
Awareness is the first step to freedom, because without it, we remain trapped in unconscious patterns. Most people live in a constant state of survival without even realizing it. They wake up feeling the same emotions, thinking the same thoughts, and behaving in the same predictable ways, and then they wonder why their lives never change. Panic attacks are simply a heightened state of survival, an intense chemical reaction where the body believes it is under threat. The heart races, the breath shortens, and the mind becomes flooded with worst-case scenarios. But here's the key. The body is not reacting to the present moment. It is reacting to a memory or a prediction, both of which exist only in the mind. This is where awareness becomes so powerful. The moment we notice what we are thinking, how we are feeling, and how our body is behaving, we are no longer living as a victim of an unconscious program. We become observers of ourselves. And in that observation, we create space between stimulus and response. Awareness is not about fighting the panic or judging it. It is about noticing it with curiosity and presence. Instead of thinking, why is this happening to me again? We begin to ask, what am I feeling right now? What thought triggered this? Where is this sensation in my body? In that moment, we are no longer fully identified with the panic. We step out of the automatic program and into the role of the witness. This is the moment where change begins. Neuroscience shows that when we observe our thoughts and emotions without reacting, we weaken the connections in the brain that keep those patterns alive. The more we practice this, the easier it becomes to catch the signals of panic early, before they spiral out of control. It is in this space of awareness that we reclaim our power to choose a different response. Instead of spiraling deeper into fear, we can begin to slow our breath, relax our body, and shift our attention. But none of this is possible without awareness. It is the door we must walk through to create a new experience. It may not feel easy at first, but every time we catch ourselves and notice what we are thinking and feeling, we are changing the program. Awareness is not just a concept. It is a skill that must be practiced daily, moment by moment, with patience and compassion toward ourselves.
The body is a record of the past. It holds on to every emotional experience we've ever had, especially the ones connected to survival. When we experience panic, the body is simply reliving an old program of fear and stress, as if it's happening all over again. The breath becomes shallow, rapid, and erratic, signaling to the brain that we are in danger. This creates a vicious cycle where the body and mind keep affirming the same state of emergency. But the breath is not just a reaction, it is also a powerful tool for change. By consciously changing the way we breathe, we can begin to teach the body that it is safe. Breath is the bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious body. It is the only function in the body that operates both automatically and voluntarily. This means we can use it intentionally to interrupt the survival response. When we slow our breath, we signal to the nervous system that there is no immediate threat. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the rest and repair system, which naturally calms the body and reduces the production of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. In moments of panic, the first step is to shift attention to the breath. Instead of focusing on racing thoughts or intense emotions, we bring all awareness to the simple act of inhaling and exhaling. We begin by breathing in slowly through the nose, expanding the belly, and then exhaling gently through the mouth, allowing the body to soften with each breath. This isn't just about relaxing. It's about retraining the body to remember what safety feels like. The breath becomes an anchor, a point of stability in the midst of inner chaos. The more we practice this, the more we strengthen the brain's association between calm breathing and emotional balance. Over time, the body learns to shift from panic to peace more quickly and naturally. This practice is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about meeting the body where it is, using the breath as a signal of safety and reassurance. Each breath becomes a message to every cell in the body, reminding it that the present moment is not a threat. It is a gentle yet powerful act of self-regulation, one that can gradually rewire our entire stress response system from the inside out.
Most people live their lives stuck in survival mode without realizing it. The brain and body are hardwired to focus on danger, constantly scanning for threats. This is an ancient mechanism designed to keep us alive, but in modern life, it often becomes overactive. Panic attacks are one of the clearest signs that the body is trapped in this survival state. The mind races, the heart pounds, and the body floods with stress chemicals. In this state, all energy is directed outward towards survival. The problem is, when we stay stuck in this mode, we lose access to higher levels of thinking, creativity, and emotional balance. To break this pattern, we must shift from survival to creation. This shift begins with intention. The moment we decide that we are no longer going to live as a victim of fear and panic, we open the door to something greater. Creation requires us to move our energy away from the body's survival responses and toward a state of possibility. In survival, we are constantly reacting to our external environment. In creation, we begin to direct our attention inward and consciously generate elevated emotions such as gratitude, love, and peace. This does not mean we ignore or deny fear. It means we choose to focus on something greater than the fear. We begin to ask ourselves, what would it feel like to be free of this? And we cultivate that feeling in the present moment, even if only for a few seconds. By doing this repeatedly, we begin to recondition the body and mind. The brain starts forming new neural connections that link safety, peace, and calm to our identity. The more we practice this, the easier it becomes to access these creative, elevated states. It requires practice because the body will try to pull us back into old patterns. It may resist. It may feel uncomfortable at first. But every time we bring our attention back to creation, whether through visualization, breath work, or meditation, we are making an intentional choice to rise above survival. Over time, the body learns that it can live in peace rather than fear. We stop reacting to life and begin consciously creating it. The shift is not just psychological, it is biological. The brain begins to rewire, the body begins to heal, and we start experiencing a new way of being that is no longer governed by the old survival programs, but driven by conscious creation of our future self.
Fear is one of the most powerful emotions the body can experience. It is deeply wired into the brain and nervous system, designed to protect us from threats and ensure survival. However, the problem begins when we become addicted to fear without realizing it. Every time we experience panic, our body releases a cascade of chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals flood the body and create strong sensations that the brain remembers. Over time, the body begins to crave these familiar chemical reactions, even if they are uncomfortable or painful. This is how emotional addiction forms. We become addicted not to the panic itself, but to the chemicals and sensations it creates. The body becomes so conditioned to this state that it starts triggering it automatically. Even small triggers or thoughts can ignite the same fear-based response because the body is simply doing what it has memorized over time. To break this emotional addiction to fear, we must first recognize it as an unconscious pattern. We have to see that the body has been living in the past, repeating the same loop over and over again. The next step is to interrupt this pattern before it gains momentum. The key is not to resist or fight the fear, but to observe it without judgment and allow it to pass through without feeding it more energy. This requires us to sit with discomfort and avoid falling into old reactions. When the fear rises, instead of spiraling into panic, we take a step back mentally and witness it as energy moving through the body. We remind ourselves that this is simply the body releasing old chemicals it has held on to for too long. As we practice this, we begin to weaken the emotional charge of the fear. The brain starts to rewire itself, forming new circuits that are not based on panic. The body slowly learns that it doesn't need to keep producing these stress chemicals to feel alive. We start to replace the addiction to fear with elevated emotions like peace, calm, and gratitude. It becomes easier over time to shift into these new emotional states because we are literally teaching the body to feel differently. This process takes practice, patience, and self-compassion, but it is the only way to truly break free from the unconscious cycle of fear and panic that has been driving our lives for far too long.
Energy is the foundation of everything we experience, including our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Every thought we think sends electrical signals through the brain, and every emotion we feel releases chemicals in the body that either elevate or deplete our energy. When we live in constant states of stress, fear, and panic, we are constantly drawing from the same limited pool of energy, and over time, this creates imbalance in both the mind and body. The key to lasting change is learning how to elevate our energy consciously and deliberately. When we raise our energy, we begin to rewire our mind because the brain can only reorganize itself in higher states of awareness and coherence. This process begins by shifting our focus from survival emotions to elevated emotions, such as gratitude, love, joy, and inspiration. These emotions carry a higher frequency and produce chemicals that heal and restore the body, while also creating new neural pathways in the brain. The act of feeling elevated emotions is not just about feeling good temporarily, it is about creating long-term biological change. In this elevated state, the brain becomes more coherent, the heart rhythm becomes more harmonious, and the body enters into a state of regulation and healing. When this happens, we gain access to parts of the brain responsible for clarity, creativity, and decision-making, which are often shut down during panic and stress. Elevating energy is not something that happens by accident. It requires intentional practice through methods such as breathwork, meditation, visualization, or simply shifting our attention towards something we deeply appreciate. By practicing this consistently, we are teaching the body what it feels like to live in peace and balance, and we begin to memorize this new state just like we once memorized stress and fear. Over time, this elevated state becomes our new normal. The more we raise our energy, the easier it becomes to think differently, to act differently, and to feel differently. Panic attacks and old survival responses begin to lose their grip because we have replaced them with a stronger, more coherent emotional state. This is not just wishful thinking, it is grounded in neuroscience and biology. When we commit to elevating our energy each day, we are literally rewiring the connections in our brain and reshaping our nervous system. Our body learns to align with these new elevated emotions, and we naturally begin to experience greater resilience, clarity, and emotional freedom.